to help scholars, young and mature, understand the sort of nature, the culture of this large federal agency. The hopes of being able to have a better understanding about how to approach the NSF, how to form a relationship with the NSF, and how to be successful as a grantee. So I am absolutely delighted, after many questions about the possibility of this happening or not happening this year, which is both the conference itself, but also having NSF actually here, as they have been in years past. So I'm absolutely grateful for making the effort at a very late moment.
Thank you.
Ms. Thompson, Program Director, and Don Leon, Yang, Program Director. And I'm going to allow you to each spend a couple of minutes telling us your background, each of you. Please do that, because I went to websites, but there's so many websites for you.
That's right.
I wasn't sure which was the most recent, you know? You have to go to the NSF, it just has it doesn't have a bio. Just information, yeah. So I think it would be nice to just hear a couple of minutes of your own personal story about your background, where you studied, what you've done, major points, and then open up your presentation to us about the agency. And afterwards, so they'll present, they have a presentation for you, and then Shahid Bassi is a faculty member here at FIU who's been a successful grantee of NSF. And she will share some of her own experience as an architecture faculty member here in that process that she has had. And then we will open it up for Q&A for everyone. So with that, please. Yeah.
Do you want to go or go?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Joanna Viscantino. I'm a program director in the Engineering for Civil Infrastructure program at NSF. Let's see all the things that you said that I should discuss. I am originally Italian, so I did my undergraduate work at the University of Padua in Italy, near Venice. And I did my master's and PhD in civil engineering at the University of California, Berkeley. My area of expertise is geotechnical engineering, so I'm a civil engineer by training, and my area within civil engineering is soils, so anything to do with the soils, whether it's a construction material, or you're built on soils, through soil, or you're afraid the soil will get you, as long as it's related to some kind of infrastructure. I was a faculty member at Texas A&M University for 12 years, then at the University of Cambridge in the UK, and I've been at NSF for about a year and a half. So if you have any questions on my background, let me know. But
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. My name is Dan Liang. I'm a program director at NSF. I'm a rotator that my home institution is University of Alabama. So I'm a faculty in the civil engineering department. Prior to coming to Alabama, I also spent 12 years at Texas Tech University. So my research relates to windstorm and their impact on the built environment, and also on the communities in general. So that's why I've been to some hurricanes, reconnaissance after hurricanes, and also after tornadoes. So I came to NSF about 7, 8 months ago. So right now I'm managing a program called HDBE. So later in the slide, I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about what kind of research my program is most interested in. Perhaps you guys have some ideas that you might want to submit.
great. So I guess we can start. Well, general outline, we're going to talk a little bit about NSF, our programs, some opportunities. I really like this slide because it gives like an overview of NSF numbers. So these are the numbers from 2021, so the last fiscal year. The budget last year was about 9 billion for the whole of NSF, and we're pretty efficient and effective at transferring the vast majority of those funds to our communities in the form of research grants, educational grants, and funding major research instrumentation and facilities. Anything from like the Antarctic station to telescopes and so on. We received last year, and this number creeps up every year. It's a little bit bigger, at least in the years that I've been providing this information. So we received 43,000, in excess of 43,000 proposals. All of those go through review. So thank you very much if you volunteer to help us review all of those proposals. And of those 43, about 11,000 were awarded. The NSF through these grants supports about 300,000 people. Think about students and faculty members and lots of institutions. So, we're really excited to be able to provide this. NSF is a relatively flat organization. We don't have a lot of layers. Our director right now is Dr. Panchanathan. The NSF directors are political appointees, and their tenure is 6 years. We have 7 directorates that are mostly focused on the different big areas of knowledge. So they mimic pretty well, the general divisions that we see in our universities. And those are the green squares. The orange squares are kind of internal works, support internal works on NSF. So if you get a grant, it's a budget, finance, and award management director that gives it to you. And we have a pretty hefty IT group. Both Dan and I are in the engineering directorate. Engineering has 5 kind of sub units called divisions. 3 of those divisions, again, are very similar to the traditional way of looking at engineering disciplines. Dan and I are in the civil, mechanical, and manufacturing innovation division. We also have a division that looks after engineering education centers, and then the industrial innovation and partnership looks at translational research, what we call translational research. So going from scientific endeavors towards industrial applications. And perhaps I should say that the current budget that is being discussed is thinking of taking that square and moving it up to the directorate, so having another big division, and expanding this part of research at NSF. Within civil, mechanical, and manufacturing innovation, we have 5 clusters, and each cluster can have 1 or more core programs. So this is where the unsolicited proposals or the proposals go. And I'm in the resilience and sustainable infrastructure cluster, and Dan is in the operation and the design cluster. Now we seem to have all these silo and divisions and barriers, but that's not really true in the sense that you would apply to one of these, but we obviously talk to each other, and we are very excited to have opportunities where PIs or research crosses over different programs. We'll say it many times, I think, in the next 30 minutes, but if you have an idea and you don't know where it fits, the best thing is to contact program directors. That's kind of a part of our job that we enjoy, in a way, to talk to the potential applicants and help them identify the right program and how to apply. Then if you want to add anything, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, kind of like, organizational charts. So in the core programs that I kind of barely highlighted ours, but the important thing I think to notice if you want to apply for what is called an unsolicited proposal. So you have an idea and you want to send the idea to us. That's what an unsolicited proposal is essentially. We have no deadlines. So you can apply anytime. And it's a good idea to first contact the program director to assess the fit. But other than that, you can send in your proposal at any point, or I should say, upload it to research.gov at any time. There's no limit on submission as long as your submissions are different. So we don't accept submissions that are the same to different programs, of course. And you can resubmit an idea if it's declined, but you need to really think about how to change it in order to go through a resubmission. So Dan, would you like to tell us about your program?
Yes, the program I manage is called Human Disaster and Built Environment, or HDBE. In addition to myself, we also have Jack Matzoris. She is the advisor to the division, especially related to research on sustainability and climate change. Robin Dillon Merrill is the expert. She used to be the program director for the exact same program, but also we have a program specialist, Kevin, supporting all the panels and review process. So I'm going to spend the next few slides just dive deeper into really the kind of research we're interested in. So here I give you a few kind of figures to look at in terms of the impact from the natural disasters, both from the in terms of the injuries and deaths, as well as the economic losses. So because we have made so much advances in warning and protecting people from those events, so actually the people being killed by those disasters are coming down over time. But the challenge we are facing is that increase or upward trend in terms of the total economic losses to those natural disasters. So, if you also pay attention to the priorities by the current Biden administration, so they direct all the federal agencies to really amplify their effort in supporting research to advance the social and or addressing the social and economic challenges from the climate change. So that's why we are taking the view that within the foundation, the program like HDBE, we can really play a major role in terms of mobilizing our research communities to really provide the evidence-based, scalable solutions that the communities, right, they can adopt to make them more resilient. So if you go to our program website, we have posted the synopsis for the program. So here I'm just highlighting the kind of the key point on that in that synopsis. So the HDBE basically is interested in research on the human and built environment dynamics, the relationship between those two in the context of disaster. So there's different way to define, what the human element is. It can be individuals, can be household, families, populations. There's different scales that you can define, and also same is true with the built environment, right? You can just study the individual structures, or you look at the infrastructure and the network. You can study, transportation, power systems, water system. That's also up to the PI to decide. And also disasters. We we're interested in, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, landslide, flooding. In the last year or so, I have seen more and more proposals related to wildfire. Right, so we just had a big wildfire last year in Colorado. So the research committee has been really mobilized to pitch ideas to the NSF. So at the end of the day, we're looking for the research that really can help our committee or society to learn from, prepare for, and also respond to future disasters. So I just want to highlight one of the projects that came out of my program. I think last year or a little bit more than 2 years ago, Adria, she's an assistant professor at Arizona State University. So the grant she had received is look at the human thermal exposure in the cities. So we have seen a lot of evidence about, because of climate change, there's a lot of apparent increase in temperatures in the urban areas. So she's more interested in devising a new sensing networks to capture that trend, and also trying to study the human responses to this kind of risks.
Uh-oh. No, I think it's because right. Okay. Great. So as I said, I'm in the Building Sustainable Infrastructure cluster, and my program is called Engineering for Civil Infrastructure. And ECI is looking more at the components of that infrastructure, and perhaps we don't have that human aspect as much, but we're looking at the research that advances resilience, sustainability, and equity of civil infrastructure. You can see me in an earlier, younger version of me, and my two colleagues I'm an expert in soils and geotechnical engineering. Both Gianluca, Dr. Kuzatis, and Dr. Pashki are structural engineers. He is more focused on civil infrastructure materials and structures where not in a disaster or not in a sense, whereas Dr. Bashki looks after structural disaster response or extreme loading response. So we're looking at fundamental research in geomaterial, geostructures, structural materials, structural, non-structural systems. Building envelopes are also part of our work, and at any kind of phases of the life of these structure and infrastructure. And buried at the bottom is extreme single or multiple events, earthquakes, windstorms, tsunamis, subsidence, landslides, and so on. So I think this also applies to any programs at NSF, but we're looking for disciplinary and cross-disciplinary research, single PI, multiple PIs. We're particularly interested in contributions that address the needs expressed by the National Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program or the National Windstorm Impact Reduction Program. I'm going to talk about the large natural hazard engineering research infrastructure in a second, but it's that infrastructure is part of our cluster. So just a warning, we are discussing the synopsis, so the description of what our program actually will fund and what our priorities are. And so we're probably going to change the synopsis. This is very common at NSF because we have lots of people that come and go at 2-3 year intervals. So new ideas, and then we change the direction of where we think the research should go. So I would encourage you to always look at the potential research areas. Some awards in my area. So for example, using vegetation to protect levees and embankments. A local PI looking at the impacts of wind on buildings, and for example, wildfires effect on slopes and slope stability post wildfires, and again, more large-scale effects of wind turbulence on structures and natural and hybrid infrastructure for coastal protection. Looking at how the vegetation can help decrease the intensity of wave action on coast and coastal infrastructure. So as I described earlier, the Natural Hazard Engineering Research Infrastructure is distributed infrastructure that NSF funds and supports through their operations. We have a number of facilities. You can't see it, but there's a new one down here at Florida International University. So they just got another facility that's combining wind and wave action, and it will take a few years for that to come online. But there are a lot of different facilities. So if you want to see how something makes it through big waves, winds, earthquakes, if you want to shake it in different ways, you can do that. There are a lot of different options. What happens is that if you're interested in testing at any of these facilities or with these equipments, you can submit a proposal to the National Science Foundation, and the National Science Foundation basically supports the operation of these facilities, so it costs a lot less for you to test. Now, we envision the use of these facilities a certain way, and the designers did the same, but if you can think of a different way, you could use enhanced gravity, for example. By all means, contact them and see how you could potentially get onto the big, large centrifuge. This is a centrifuge with I think right now the current one is a 6-meter radius, and you can spin several tons of stuff around it, so that gravity goes up to 150 G. I know it's very useful for my research, so for my type of research. But if you can think of a reason why you could do with something like that, or big waves onto your structure, or any of these facilities, go ahead. The exciting one that you can barely see is the bottom at 6 o'clock. Right now, the University of California, San Diego is finishing the upgrade to their shaking table. This is going to be a 6D, 6-directional shake table. And it's so large, you can build an entire building on it and then shake it. They are going to test a 10-story structure soon, I think sometime in the next 6 months. And I was talking to somebody earlier, and I said, well, if you can think of a reason where you want to test some concept inside a building that's going to be in an earthquake, you submit a proposal, and we convince them that you can build whatever you want in the building, and they'll shake it together with their building. And you can do what we call piggyback research. And we're really excited about these opportunities. So please. All of these are, they're probably going to be live. So if you're interested, we're going to be very excited to see a whole building. So, and they also have tall wood buildings that they're going to test. All right, so actually 2 big projects that we support on an ongoing basis might be interesting to you. These are our extreme event Reconnaissance projects. One is in geotechnical engineering, and one is in structural engineering. And essentially, once there is a big disaster, they quickly set up a team and go to the site and take data and information. So if you are interested in disaster reconnaissance, I strongly recommend that you look them up and sign up, for example, Sphere has a Slack channel, and as soon as something happens around the US and the world, they communicate and try to put together a team and decide what to do. So if you'd like to participate to disaster reconnaissance through these, that's an interesting opportunity. These are funded by NSF, so if you're part of the team, you basically get to participate in that. Okay, so maybe I should stop here for a sec and ask if anybody has questions on this part. Yeah.
I have a simple question. First of all, what does Slack?
I think I don't know. I mean, we're happy to give the slides. I don't know that how.
Make it available on YouTube channel. But slide would be very helpful to just copy.
Well, right now we can't copy them. It's like I can't get them out. No, even not. Okay. We can figure it out. Okay.
And you were talking about if you have ideas to write to the directors, right? And is there any specific form you would like to prefer, like one page or whatever?
We have a discussion later on that, if you don't mind, so that we can.
Sure.
Any question on the programs? Okay.
We have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
Is I4 part of I4 for NSF? What that is it part of any of these? So like apply for future like potential to get a business research.
I think I4 programs reside within that IPP. So the what's that? IP.
It's partnership, innovation, industry, innovation, and partnership,
Right.
something like that.
Okay.
They're part of the engineering directorate. So
Does anybody know what I4 is? Okay. Some people didn't say yes, but I4 is an opportunity where if you have an idea that's potentially commercializable, they would pair the researcher with industrial experts that can help you figure out how to bring your idea to commercialization. So the new director that they're thinking of taking that part of NSF and making it bigger, it's going to do more of that. But right now we don't know much because it's kind of in the budget and they have to decide that they want to fund it first, and then they'll let us know.
That's a good question. I have a question about social economic sciences branch. You also support like the research, like in sociology, like overlap with kind of humanities and
Yes.
as well.
I would say, yeah. Sorry, Dan, you probably know more.
yeah, I think
don't know.
SPE, the social and behavior and economic science. So that's a separate directorate, parallel to engineering and biology and geosciences. So yes, so they support a lot of people from sociology, psychology, economics. So that typically where you can submit your idea to. But sometimes if you want to have a specific, let's say, disaster focus, so you can request a co-review. So basically you bring that proposal to us, and then we can co-review your proposal, and based on the outcome, we might end up co-funding your project. So we do that all.
And maybe the other recommendation is that I don't interact. I tend to be more of an engineering. Our program is more of an engineering focused program, so I don't interact a lot with the programs in social and behavioral economical sciences. But for any field that you're interested in, the best thing is to go look at the synopsis and try to identify which program might be the best based on what you think, and then email them and see how they come back. And so we're going to discuss again how to do that. No. Okay, so just a few notes on submitting proposal. If you have never submitted a proposal to NSF, our guide and answer to any question is in the proposal on the award policies and procedures guide. I think every so many years they add a word to that title. You know, I think it was the proposal and award guide when I started 20 years ago. But the is changed every year or every couple of years. So, and it gives basically detailed instructions. So if you are not sure, again, email the program director. First thing we do is go see what the faculty says. And of course, we spend a lot of time interpreting it as well. So feel free to ask for questions, but that's a good point to start. We have I don't know, I can keep going, but funding mechanisms. So unsolicited award is our kind of standard way to submit proposals. So it's basically you have an idea, you thought up something, and you just you know, after all this is said, you know, contact the program director, figure out a way to send it, and then you just upload all your documents to research.gov. And your Office of Sponsored Research pushes the document, submits it. It pops up in our to-do list, and then we take it from there. And we can discuss what the process is at that point. But we also have other potential award types that you can apply for that are slightly different. Conferences and workshop proposals, for example. Supplements, but sorry, I'm looking and said, oh, I'm missing like a couple I wanted to discuss, but I think they're in the further slides. But you can use conference proposals and eager proposal or rapid proposal. I'll discuss them in a second. All of those require approval from the program director before you can submit. And then there are solicitations. I listed the career award there, but it's actually a solicitation. The career award is one of the signature programs at NSF, and it's for early career faculty. So for untenured faculty only, you have 3 tries, so you can only apply 3 times, and it's only, again, 3 tenure. And it's usually a prestigious award. So for any career awardees, that's kind of like a big deal. It's a 5-year award, and it's an individual award to that person. We're not going to spend a lot of time there, but if you have an NSF award, you can also apply for supplements, and you get supplements, for example, for research experience for undergraduates. So if you want undergraduate students to work on research on your grant, you can apply for a supplement, and I think we can say it. If you have a grant and you want undergraduates to work with you, that's almost automatic. You send the request and you say yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all right. We're very excited to get undergraduate students to do research with you. If you have an award. So you know, the only thing is, at least in CMMI, you need to apply between October and the end of April. And the only reason is that we may not have money after the end of April. So we don't want you to apply and we have to say sorry, you got no money. So apply early so that you can, and you can get it every year. So you can apply every year of your grant. Same thing with the research experience for teacher, but we also have, it's a bit varied, but there's a career life balance supplement. So if, you know, things happen in people's lives. So if you, need support through a difficult period in a life, the university, this is for those situations, the university needs to certify that you're taking family leave or equivalent. The university will assess what the equivalent is. But essentially, it's a supplement to help the PI basically hire somebody that can help them continue to perform all the duties on the grant. So it's kind of like some help. There's an intern supplement that is for your PhD students to work in industry, and this is kind of like for their research. So it's not like an internship to go work in a company. I think that the company should pay for that, but if your students would benefit from being in their research, for being in an industrial setting, and the company would also provide support for the research, then there's an opportunity.
Oh, can I say something?
Yes.
So we also put more priority if your students really end up wanting to do an internship with government agencies or nonprofits. I agree that the company should pay for the internship, but if you go to those organizations, so we definitely, the NSF will be waiting to support such efforts. And so it won't be a burden for on the nonprofit side.
Yes. So you're making me go on. So we also have solicitations. So that's the other way that NSF receives proposals. Solicitation are specific programs that that request a proposal in with specific requirements. We listed a bunch. Those are not all that are there. You should sign up for news and emails. We have some that are currently active and we think you'd be interested in. There is one, I think I have it later. So I think we have some slides later on. So instead of, I mentioned this one, the rapid response research proposals. Rapids are, we call them rapids, are kind of special awards that we give when there are perishable data. So that's usually like they go together with, for us, typically disaster reconnaissance. Because if you don't go now, then they're gonna bulldoze over it. And, people are gonna be displaced. You cannot talk to them, and so on and so forth. If you're interested in these, you can also look at the two extreme event reconnaissance organization. They usually set up teams. But also you can independently contact us, and we need to give you permission to apply. So basically, you first have an agreement from us that we support this award, and then submit. And then I think
We have some for the building collapse here in Miami last year.
actually, yes and no. So, do you remember when I showed that slide that had like all the NARI facilities? One of the facilities at about 11 is the rapid facility. So the rapid facility sent equipment to the collapse, but NIST was taking lead. So we couldn't really get in. So if any of you were to ask us for a rapid, we couldn't actually, because it was an active crime investigation, and we couldn't get permission for you or PIs to get in. But NIST, because it's together with FEMA, they had all the required permissions for the government to get in. So we got the equipment to them, and they actually used the NARI equipment. Sorry, it's a mask. So I was working with GEAR, so the geotechnical engineering extreme event reconnaissance, because they thought the problem was foundations. So that the foundation had problems, the basement had problems, and then that caused the collapse. So the people at GEAR were trying to go, but we couldn't organize it because they didn't have permission. So then this, and then it's a solution. But yes, no. So if you're interested in, for example, the rapid facilities, they have a look. They have all kinds of drones. They have boat, like a drone boat that they can use. They have LiDAR. They have, I can't remember all they have, but if you're interested in field reconnaissance, they're really very, 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 very knowledgeable. And they're going to be happy to talk to you and give you advice on how to use their equipment. And it doesn't have to be for disaster reconnaissance, I have to say. If you can convince them, it's a good use of their time and efforts. So I'm trying to convince you. The workman is good. All these facilities have workshops and virtual and in person. So if you're interested in learning more, you can sign up for one of the workshops, or you can just call them. It's their job to actually answer their usual questions. We discuss the career program. If you have questions, maybe you can ask later a little bit more about it. If you're not familiar with it, I grayed out the second one that was specifically for PIs, early career PIs that has had thank you, have had no prior federal funding, but also they need to be in non-research funding institutions. So it's if you're familiar with the Canadian classification. And that's not current, but we're hoping that it will come out in a few months. Right now, if you're mid-career faculty, we have a program in CNMI called RIGHT, and I can never remember the acronym. It's boosting research ideas for transformative and equitable advances in engineering. It's basically different opportunities for people in kind of mid-career or later, so tenured faculty. And there are different tracks. So it's for relaunching your career or changing tracks in your career, or there's a fellow opportunity that's for kind of like an excellence in research type of award. And if you're potentially interested in that, again, your research needs to fit one of our CMMI programs. So you should contact them and the program director to figure out which is the best way. Dan, feel free to, here's a credit. Feel free to take over at any point. So I think we discussed this a little bit. It's a great opportunity. As I said, 5 years. It's a minimum of 500, which means it can be higher than 500. It's whatever you need. Don't make it a million, because as much as you want, but considering that we have budgets as well. The submission date is July, third week in July. There's usually, NSF usually organizes a workshop, and I last checked with our colleague that does that, and it's late this year. Instead of April, it's probably going to be in May, and there's an application process, and that hasn't been published. So usually this is a big signature program, so most universities have a workshop for early career faculty in this area. So on the career award. If you have questions, I can answer. Great, it's yours now.
All right. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about two special solicitations that all three family with. I think will become of interest to this audience. The first one is called Smart and Connected Community, ARCC. So Berkeley is a foundation-wide collaboration between the different programs, even different directorate. So you have engineering, you have SDE, you have computer science. We all pull the research together, mainly to address the challenges that our community faces. Right, those are could be related to renewable energy, food, water. Disaster definitely is one of the priority areas, and even health and well-being. So we got 30 proposals from different disciplines addressing different issues, but we have two tracks. One is for a larger kind of undertaking, so you can ask for a budget greater than $1.5 million and up to 4 years. And then the track 2 is more focused, is below 1.5 and can have up to 3 years of support. So in addition to those two tracks, we also accept the planning grant. For example, if you want to really forming up ideas that eventually will turn into a regular research proposal, so we give you up to $150,000 to do the planning, right? Talk to your stakeholders, get your team together, really refine your research design, and making sure it's really really address all the things that this program is designed for. So right now we funding in 2020 is $43 million. In 21, can't see.
I'm sorry, I can do that.
$23 million. So we continue. We just released the new solicitation about a month ago. So it no longer has a deadline. So that's the biggest change. So we used to have deadlines, but now whenever you're ready, you can submit to this board.
I can, sorry. There.
Okay. So another one, we consider this as a kind of sister program to the SCNC. It's called Civic Innovation Challenge. So this is the second time we're doing this. This is solicitation just being released probably 3 weeks ago or so. It's pretty fresh. So what this is about is to allow our research committee to really go to the committee and pilot your research project. You already figured out in your lab or in your computer, but you really want to apply that to real setting. So that's the opportunity for you to really leverage this Civic Innovation Challenge program. So the other unique aspect about this is we have a partnership in NSF with the DOE and DHS. And so those are the two federal partners. We're also working with a company called Metro Lab. So they are providing a lot of behind the scene support. Once again, we're looking to support research and action driven by community priority. So the planning grant is due May 5th of this year. So we just had a webinar last week, I think, and then we have another 2 really coming up. I think one next month, not next week, and then a third one. So we ask you to start with a state-wide planning grant, right? So it's about $50,000 per award in order for you to kind of improve your ideas and strengthen your partnership. So it's only lasts for 6 months. So we don't anticipate you will start something from scratch. You already have a partnership, you already have an audience, so already this planning grant is allowing you to intensify that partnership, right? And then if you get the stage 1 planning grant, so then you will compete for the stage 2, the full award. It's about $1 million for award, right? So with that additional resources, we really want to see you make a real impact in the community. So again, even for the stage 2 award, it's only lasts for 1 year. So you have to be really ready when you get that money from NSF, and then you can deploy your research and really start making an impact. Yes.
You develop community priorities. Is there any specific scope for community priorities?
Yes, that's next slide. So we have 2 tracks. As you can imagine, NSF is very interested in fundamental research because we have 2 additional partners. So the DHS is very interested in the impact of climate change, right? So they are very heavily involved in developing and also eventually supporting the track A proposal. How do we adapt to the changing climate in terms of improving the infrastructures and services, improving the food and agriculture ecosystem, individual buildings, and also improving the education and workforce development, right? That's a track A. So if you look at track B, that's where the Department of Energy is most interested, right? They are really trying to provide better access to the essential services, right? Whether it's the transportation or the power systems or other infrastructure. So they want the research or the project to address long-standing issues around accessibilities, economic disparities, the communities with limited resources. Also, it happens that they also consider project related to disaster as well. So there is a little bit of overlapping between those two tracks, which is how we understand it.
Oh, I think this is
that's
something
your-
that I'm involved in. So every 2 years we have an ongoing program called Emerging Frontiers of Research Innovation, and the topics of this program change every 2 years. The current ones are engineered living systems and brain-inspired dynamics, and so on and so forth. I'm involved with the engineered living system, and I thought this community might be interested. It's looking at sustainable built environments and safe built environments. As long as there is a living component that is not humans, okay? It's understood that usually it's people, but in this case, the living component is in addition to the humans. The program, it's buried down there, but it's just going through the first cycle. So the next cycle, there's a pre-proposal due in October, and then teams are selected for full proposal later. The reason why I think you might be interested in addition to the topic is that this program is supposed to, the participation or the teams are supposed to be very cross-disciplinary, and they have to have a ethics, legal, social component as well as the engineering component. So it kind of makes for a nice integrated team looking at different dimensions of that sustainable built environment and safe built environment. So something else that has been that's relatively recent, we have a Dear Colleague letter. Dear Colleague letter at NSF are basically ways for NSF to highlight some priorities. So this one is critical aspects of sustainability, innovative solution to climate change. So we're looking for ideas to approach climate change mitigation and adaptation. I think that it's buried a little bit in this Dear Colleague letter, but if you look at the fourth bullet, I think this could be potentially interesting to this community. In the Dear Colleague letter, it's also not very much highlighted, but it's in there. If you're interested in potentially the CAS Dear Colleague letter and responding to this, you need to send an email to that email address. And they'll help find the right program to submit to.
I don't know why there's two. Okay.
I just bring this up because maybe you are interested in the kind of Arctic environment, and there's a solicitation currently out, and it's gonna come back. I think that says 8 February 2023 over there under the link, but it's another one of these large kind of solicitation that requires big teams with cross-disciplinary, or in NSF speak, convergent research. I thought I had one other one. I'm just going to bring up another one that I thought I had the slide, but apparently I deleted it. Somebody in the first session this morning, before the plenary, to kind of work in multidisciplinary teams. Oh yes, you're and somebody said students. You know, you need the students, and the students help you. And so one of the solicitations and opportunities is the NSF Trading Networks. So this is a solicitation that is asking for ideas to develop programs that support training of graduate students. So basically, if you want to develop a PhD or master program, this opportunity gives you the funding to do that, and the funding for the students to participate in this program. And depending on how you see this, there are different options. It depends on how you think of this training program to also perform the research. Does that make sense? So it's like to set up the curriculum, develop the curriculum, but also potentially perform the research and fund the students to perform the research. So that might be interesting. And it's a bit of a sideways way to get into the research, but you know, there is no limitation in terms of topics. So you can you know, look at ways of training the students, again, possibly not cross
How many years?
I want to say 4 or 5. And it's a bit, nice question. It's a bit tricky because it supports the students for like 2 out of 3 years or 3 out of 4, like it doesn't give full. So the supervisor, the advisor of the student needs to fund some other funds, but typically the university, if you give, so you know, so if the university gets several millions to set this one out, they'll kind of be sometimes willing to give a little bit side money that they make and pay for that extra year for the students. So, but if you're interested, I can put you in touch with the people in the education directorate that really administer the program. We are only typically involved to help with the assessment and review process. Obviously, it depends on the topics. So I think the last few slides are on the merit review process. So I'll just very quickly go through because I don't think we want to spend a lot of time. But this is what we tell every reviewer that reviews for NSF. Every proposal is reviewed based on 2 merit review criteria, intellectual merit and broader impacts. So for every proposal, we ask reviewers to assess the proposal potential for advancing knowledge, understanding, and understanding within the field or across different fields. That's what we mean by intellectual merit, or the potential of the proposal to benefit society and advance desired societal impact. Proposed, we ask all the other questions. So are the activities new, creative, potentially transformative? That's a big word for NSF. Is the plan well reasoned? There's a good rationale, it's organized. Are the people in the team qualified? And do they have adequate resources? Every single proposal is assessed based on this, which means that when you write a proposal, you should address those questions because that's what is going to be asked. So I think this is to conclude. You know, we have a lot more to say about merit review criteria if you have questions, but to conclude, if there's one thing you should get out of this is the best place to start is to have an idea and to contact the program director to ask whether that idea fits the program or which program would be the best fit. How would you do that? Typically, we really like if you can send us a one-page summary because that allows us to think about it. It's kind of hard to get people cold call you and say, hey, you know, what do you think about this? But if we have something written, that is very helpful. So usually you would send an email with this one-page summary, and then we would move on from there. And quite often, the next step is to have a conversation and set up a virtual meeting. But if you are unsure at any point, this is the first thing you should do. And I think that's it. Oh, why contact us? Because essentially, we have the ability to say, sorry, not for me, take it back. So you don't want to do a lot of work until you know that it's going to be going to the right place. We can also help you direct your research to the right spot, or like Dan was saying earlier, sometimes we can help you find a home and negotiate with colleagues if we think it's between our programs, and you don't want to be in that situation without first knowing that that's going to happen, because if a proposal comes in, it doesn't have a home, it starts going around. It's dispiriting. So now I really think this was the last one. No,
there's
well, it's like, okay, so how do you get to hear about all these opportunities? You sign up for funding information email, and then you get 50 emails a day. And process the duplicates like I do. But it's even we learn of things this way sometimes because there's so much going on at NSF. And you can always unclick things as you find that you get too many duplicates. I am scared of clicking now. There. Thank you. It's strange to get an applause.
Finally, it's over.
Yes.
Like Shaheen to say just a couple of words as someone who's gone through this process a little bit, if you would just share, and then we'll turn it over to the audience to ask whatever questions you have.
Sure, you made it sound so easy.
Wow,
Yeah.
principle.
Like as someone who's got a few awards, when I go through my NSF, because everybody once you get an award, or actually once you apply, you have like an interface. You can see the awards you have submitted, which one has been funded, and whenever I go to see what I have submitted, I'm really embarrassed of the ones that I get rejected. So don't get discouraged, because at the end, I think when you submit the first time, the second time, you get a lot of feedback, and that feedback is essential to making improvements to what you're writing. So if you do not, my comment would be, if you do not get the first time or even the second time, do not get discouraged.
Can I say, if you don't get it the 10th time, maybe start getting bored. I think I got my 10th.
Oh, wow.
I had
Yes.
9 unsuccessful ones before I got a successful one. And then it was easy. So sometimes we have to learn. Sorry for
No,
interrupting.
but that's good. I still had to say, oh my God, did I really submit this many and I didn't get it? But once you start getting the first one, then there's a little bit of confidence. You might not get the second one after the first one you get, but then you're in a group that you kind of can move forward. I think that has been my experience, and I think it's a route very, very well worth it to pursue, because you get to have the students that you want to support. You get to do the work that you want, and you have all of the resources you need. So this is
Is it true that most of the funding, like you get, say you have 500,000 or 200,000, maybe that's But,
It depends on what it is, but
but where does 90% of the money go?
90% is a bad number
All right.
because your institution negotiates with the federal government to be indirect return, so pay for everything, facilities and so on. And that is typically 40 to 65, like, well, everybody has a different number, so I can't tell.
They have 47, and that's why.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I've seen up to 65, which is a bit, you know. So where does the most of the money go? To the university.
So if 50% goes to overhead, then there's 50% left.
It's a bit more because it's 50% of the what is left that is goes to the. So it's 1/3.
Ah.
The math-oriented person.
But what gets funded and what doesn't get funded in a proposal? For instance, I've heard that basically most of the funding goes to students.
Yes.
That is what the money is for. The money is
Yes,
predominantly going to.
I would agree. But it kind of depends on what your project is. But I mean, I think in most situations, the research every day is performed by the students. So I would say that yes, most of the funding goes for the students. Then students, potentially postdocs, and then of course to fund you as the academic, as the principal investigator, we expect.
Summer funding.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or academic. I don't think we really check whenever you need it, but typically summer funding. And there's a limit to of 2 months per year from NSF overall. So if you have multiple projects, still most is 2 months per year. And then it depends on what your project is. There's some travel, usually not a huge amount, unless your project specifically has a component that requires travel. So we get into the details. There aren't that many categories in there, to be honest. We don't fund equipment very heavily. So I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think we might have a maximum of 50K for equipment in an unsolicited proposal, but usually big equipment is not funded this way. So if you want big equipment, there's a program called MRI, Major Research Instrumentation, which isn't necessarily major, or it depends on what you think of it. Like I think of major and I think millions, but we also fund something like in 500,000. But you wouldn't send it as an unsolicited proposal because it would. You would write the program director would say, sorry, this isn't the right mechanism. You need to ask, you need to submit to MRI.
Just adding to that, in addition to the personnel costs, which is the majority of the money, we also for my program, because for a lot of social scientists, they need to conduct surveys, so they need to provide some incentives for participants in the survey, so that can also be paid out of the project.
Yeah, we don't have that.
Starbucks cards.
Yeah, Amazon, Starbucks, yeah.
I'm finding new things. We put like a, material thing like that. You have to go to the transport. One of you. Yeah.
I have a question about early career grant. So you said it's for tenure track professors instead of apply to tenure track associate professor?
No. If you are an associate professor, you are considered already senior, even if you have no tenure. Now, there's a long list of eligibility. So if you Google NSF career, I think it's solicitation 525, but just Google NSF career. The eligibility section tells you everything. And that's true for every solicitation. There's an eligibility section because sometimes you might, if in a solicitation, you may be allowed to participate only once as a principal investigator. So you can't submit 2 proposals, but you can submit 1 as a principal investigator, 1 as a co-investigator. So it's always good to check eligibility. One of them, you heard that only non-R1 institutions can apply. So it's in there. But no, I think even without tenure, associate professor cannot participate. And you had a question.
For each time the times of the 10 application, we probably reject it. How long it take to get comments to see where was our mistake?
Excellent. So NSF tries to process proposals within 6 months of submission, but it's not always possible. It depends sometimes, forget, the last 2 years we've had some issues trying to stay on time and on track, and we keep having some issues, I think, but typically it's 6 months. If a proposal is particularly, sometimes large proposals or proposals that have many different disciplines might take longer, because if it's co-reviewed and it has to be looked at into different groups, then they might have different time schedules. So
the average is
6 months.
And based on the feedbacks, we can know that where was the problem in our.
Yes, however, I want to be really clear on this. A proposal is not like a paper. Just because a panel gives you some, or reviewers give you some pointers, it doesn't mean that if you fix those next time it's better. So because it's completely different people, completely different panel next time. So it's really important if, we can have a longer discussion, but I think it's important to look at the reviews and understand how you want to respond to those to make your proposal stronger, not just to address, a particular point that one particular review makes. So it's not like a journal where, they say, change this, and you change it, because, otherwise there's a, reject in the journal. You need to be convinced that that's the right way for you to do the work. I think that and then.
Thank you. What about NSF's EAAE?
I'm happy to say something, but so those are cross disciplinary. I'm not familiar with all of them. I've been working on the harnessing the data revolution, for example. Those had the different solicitation, so you can see it through solicitation. I'll just point out that those were developed by the previous director. So I would wait. I think we're also waiting to see what happens to them. If they will go forward, or there's a new cycle of new ideas and new priorities. I think that we're kind of waiting, I think, to see how, for example, climate change and everything related to climate change is going to impact research going forward, but it takes time.
I think there's a new call for new ideas.
There is.
That we see that come up with a new sort of ideas.
Yeah, there's always call for that. I pulled out that slide, for example. There's a visioning activity going on in engineering. Visioning activity is called, I can't remember, the acronym is IRVA. So if you want to participate, Google IRVA and NSF, and it should come up. I think there's much activity going on, and internally we're having a lot of discussions, but it takes time for ideas to coalesce and then to be fleshed out, and then to be, what's a good word? To go from idea, concept, big picture to what do we do in practice? How do we get the money there? So I think it's keep looking. I think things will come out, but it's usually through some kind of solicitation or groups of solicitations. If you have it,
one of the good things about NSF is that we evaluate your proposal based on those criteria, but if you convince NSF that your project is very sound and worthwhile. We provide the funding, we give you the flexibility, right? We trust you will drive the research direction. So unlike some other agencies, so they want to check every 3 months how you're doing, but that's for you. You tell us on an annual basis your annual report, but most of the times we just let you do what you propose and give you that resources that you can advance knowledge. So it's, to me, just working with, I have worked with NSF, other agencies, state and federal, NSF is really the best place in my opinion to get your research. So.
Does CMMI have any like SBIR style funding for startups, or this is only academic?
SBIR is a program within the IIP division of engineering. So CMMI doesn't have directly SBIR funding. It goes through the industrial innovation partnership. I think again, look at the news when the budget is approved. I hope they will also hear if we NSF gets this extra funding to set up a bigger version of that. Yeah.
Sometimes use the term multidisciplinary, sometimes transdisciplinary, and now convergence research. Can you unpack those terms a little bit when they're used? Or maybe just convergence research because it's a.
I think we keep seeing this kind of change in how we say things, in how what we call transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, because we really want to give the sense that it needs to really be wide. If looking at some of my engineering colleagues, if you say, cross-disciplinary, they think it's like one type of civil engineer working with another type of civil engineer. And we don't think that's that's not what we want. So that's why, for example, in the engineering living system, we explicitly say we want the technical research, but we also want the team to have expertise in these areas. Because if you put a living system inside a built environment, we really want you as a team to address what the ethical, social, legal implications are. So that's kind of what we're trying to convey. I think it's all of this is like, we don't want just slight different variation of the same. We really want you to pass the wide net in terms of what we bring together. And we see that, and I think I would encourage you to look at these opportunities, because I think you, as a community, you're really well positioned to be the nexus to bring these different elements together. And NSF has partly in terms of the big ideas we have big solicitations that are putting out big funding, like 1 million a year. It's a big money for big teams to look at big problems. And so I think that you can potentially find some really good fits, even in all the places. As I said, I mentioned that I was working on the harnessing the data revolution. That was data science. We had a solicitation on institutes, and it was supposed to be data science in the discipline. And as long as it was data science, and it has a discipline that wasn't data science, it was like 10 to 20 millions. And some of the topics you have are really exciting for the data scientists. So there were a lot of things that you should have been involved with that we said we had like computer scientists involved. And I'm not sure I want computer scientists designing my city.
Question. is like what are the chances of getting the name of architecture in the program? Because I think once you think it's engineering, the first idea for us is like we are not. I think now that architecture is actually recognized as a STEM by the federal government, is there any plan to include architecture as a potential? Because I think it makes people to think a little bit.
Can I turn it around?
Sure.
I mean, you're the community. You need to make it happen to us. So I come from a very small community compared to architecture. And in the late 80s, the NSF decided that maybe we don't need research in that area. And there's about 350 academics in the country in my field. And they all got together and they've been together ever since. And every time I said, what about these topics? We're all here and we're all important and you can't do anything without us. So I think it's like, I think it really, it's your lobbying that can make a difference. And I'm not saying that my program, it keeps shrinking, but we try, but I think that community.
It's about making the case.
I think it's making the case, looking at opportunities, because I think that really there are lots of opportunities. I mean, every solicitation says all these technical things and people. And I can tell you, I can't do people. Okay, so I can do landslides.
But one way, if I may, just I agree with Giovanna. It's a lot of times we are relying on our research to bring those ideas or important questions to us, so we can line up our programs to. For example, we have a climate change dear comment letter. So one of the way to do that is to ask for a workshop, right? You can gather together as a committee to say, this is the priorities that we can address in terms of climate change or other issues. And then, then you provide that feedback to the NSF and we can work with you, with our committee to either, open up our program or we can even, open up new programs.
I think that's a really, thank you, Dan. That was a really nice way to make it practical. Like that's a great thing you can do. Because we get lots of workshop proposals, but if a whole community comes together to organize something, that is meaningful. If two of you come together and organize something, for us, it's kind of like, are we interested in this? Why would we? But if, it kind of makes a difference when something is clearly bringing together a whole community and is trying to make the case for something that, I think would make sense to us, and if not necessarily myself and Dan, I mean, through NSF. So I think making a good case for the type of research you want to do is a good starting point. Also keep in mind it's a circle. If there are no proposals, there's no reason to be a program. So we need proposal to advocate if we need somebody with expertise in that area in order to have a program. It's a bit like, you need to work on in different ways.
Thank you so much for the question and for your example of how your field became a dominant player.
Dominant, I think, is too big.
Let's say the fact that it's,
we exist.
It's basically a habits on box, and that's quite.
No. I have a third of a little box. That's not making me too important compared to,
Yeah, but thanks for the example. So this, I think, a case of that would be that architects often feel that if they're part of an NSF proposal, maybe it's as a senior personnel or maybe as a co-PI, best case scenario. So I think we often lack confidence. So it's very inspiring to see examples and your kind of call for the community to come together. So I have a question in that regard. Would that be your colleague letters to kind of put forward a request or kind of a call from a community, or would that be
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? The dear colleague.
It's about the Dear Colleague program that you mentioned, which was about kind of the community reaching out and moving forward ideas for NSF they mentioned too. So let's say if there's a community of architects that are putting forward requests for this program, that we do that, or would it be just sheer number of submissions? I understand that these efforts will take time, but I'm curious kind of how do you see the community kind of engage in this architecture?
Yeah. I'll try to answer that. So if that's a dear call, you're most interested, so definitely you can respond to that. So basically your request or inquiries will go to that central mailbox, and then they'll filter out to different programs or core programs within the foundation. So we got email from time to time saying, hey, do you think this idea fits better with your program? So once you pass that stage, then you will get the invitation for we're interested in your idea. Let's work on a workshop proposal, or let's work on a regular proposal, and then you just submit your proposal directly to whatever program that they have.
So if I can add to that, it depends on what you want. So if you're so a workshop is a good way to, in a way, catalyze the community. So for us, sometimes we start something, or sometimes you could start something. So let's say that you identified some teams that are really important to this community, and you wanted to identify both the community and have people discussing this and discuss what the research needs are in this area. Now, you would contact us, whether you do it through CAS, it doesn't matter. You would contact the program director and say, we would like to do this. We want to bring these teams together, and we would like to explore in a workshop what further research is necessary and how, for example, NSF could support this. And then it's a discussion, Say it comes to Dan and I and somebody else, and we'll go, I don't know, you haven't put it, can we discuss this? This one sounds, can you focus more on this? We kind of do a bit of give and take, and then maybe this happens and you bring it together. If you're interested in that, keep in mind, we again like that convergence. So if it's all of you and you're all kind of in the same area, that perhaps isn't so exciting. So how do you bring these out areas? So we want to do something different. And it's not just about bringing the architects, is how do the architects finally work with these other people that they don't necessarily work at the same level, at the same as collaborators integrating. So great, that's one. That kind of generates something for us, for you to think about, and for us to think about once you've done it. Also, you need to submit at some point, because if you don't submit, then we don't have a good argument. So they're two different things. So go to your colleagues and say, I want to do this, and I want to be the PI of this, and you can work with me on this, and I'll coordinate. And that also creates a different sense inside NSF that this is happening.
We are at the end of our hour, but maybe they, Giovanna and Don, have a chance to have a cappuccino outside in the courtyard, and you can talk to them one-on-one for just a little bit.
That was my request. So please just ask them and linger for a few more minutes.
Yeah, that's what we're asking. And we have a nice espresso cart to sort of help that happen. Please join me in thanking Giovanna. Not a bad place to visit, but
I wish you could visit also.
I know. She's back on the airport tonight, but thank you for making this the effort to be here. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
It's been really fun.
Thank you.
We have a 4:30 plenary And final keynote, we'll also have some initial announcements about the event tonight. So, thank you, that was.